So this is homework number 16, page 125, numbers 1 through 8, and it's part 1. So we're only going to do numbers 1 through 8 of the whole homework, 1 through 16. So originally this homework is problems number 1 through 16, but we're only going to solve 1 through 8 in part 1. So let's go ahead and get started with the first problem. And it's asking us to identify terms, coefficients, and constants. So for number 1, it says that we have an expression of 6q plus 1. So first we're going to go ahead and identify the terms. And remember that the terms are separated by a plus or a minus. So in this case, in this expression, we actually have two terms. We have 6q and 1 because it's separated by a plus here. So we can say that the terms are terms are 6q and 1. And then the next thing that they're asking us are for coefficients. So remember that coefficients are the numbers that are attached to the variables by multiplication. So in this case, we only have one coefficient, which is 6q. So the coefficient here, I'm just going to abbreviate coefficient, would be 6q, but we're only interested in the number in front of the variable. So the coefficient here would be 6. So this is a term that we look at for coefficients, 6q, because it's a number and a variable multiplied together, but the coefficient is only the number that's right in front of the variable, which is 6. And lastly, we're looking at constants. So constants, remember that they're just the numbers that are hanging out by themselves. So in this case, in this expression, we only have one constant, which is 1. And then moving on to number 2. Number 2 is expression 3r squared plus 4r plus 8. And in the same way, we also have to look for terms, coefficients, and constants. So first, we're going to go ahead and identify the terms. And remember that the terms are separated by a plus or a minus. So in this case, how many things are being separated by a plus or a minus? We have 3r squared, and we have 4r, and we have 8. So those would be the terms in this expression. So I would write 3r squared, comma, 4r, comma, and 8. These are the three terms that we have. Now moving on to coefficients. Coefficients, we have 2 here, right? Because 4 is attached to r by multiplication and 3 is attached to r by multiplication. So in the first coefficient, the first term, we have 3 being the coefficient, and in the second term, we have 4 being the coefficient. Now lastly, we're going to identify the constants. Remember that the constants are only the numbers that are hanging out by themselves, so in this case, we only have 8. Okay, there we go. So we have just solved 1 and 2. Now we're going to move on to numbers 3 and 4. Okay. Let's focus on 3 for now. So it says, the directions are write the expression using exponents. So for number 3, we have s times s times s times s. And we have to write this expanded form into exponent form. So that means that we have to condense it. We have to make this long expression smaller. So let's go ahead and count how many s's we have. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. We have a total of 4 s's. So our base here is going to be s because that's what we see repeated, right? And then we have to count how many times we see it. 1, 2, 3, 4. So since we have 4 s's, that's going to be our little exponent. So that's just saying that I have 4 s's being multiplied together. So we just condensed it, we made it smaller. So when the directions say write the expression using exponents, you would do this. This is considered an exponent. So you're going from long to smaller by putting it together. S to the 4th power, because you have 4 s's. Now moving on to number 4, we have the number 2, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 t's. So since we only see 2 one time in our expression, we're just going to go ahead and bring that down because it's only 1, 2. And then let's go ahead and count how many t's do we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then we're going to write t first, and then we're going to write 5 as a little exponent since we only see it 5 times. And I didn't put a plus in the middle or a minus or a division sign because these little dots indicate multiplication. So I know that 2 is being multiplied to all of these t's. So I can just go ahead and write 2 t to the 5th without anything in the middle, or you can also write 2 and then the little dot t to the 5th. These are basically the same thing, but you should get used to writing it in this way. 2t to the 5th. And then moving on to number 5 and 6. The directions for 5 and 6 are evaluate the expression when a equals to 8 and b equals to 2. So we have 2 values, a equals to 8 and b equals to 2. And we're given this expression 8 plus 5, and we have to solve for it. So since we have to evaluate, that means that you have to solve. So you have 8 plus 5, but you're told that a equals to 8. So in order to find this value, you have to go ahead and plug in. So it's 8 plus 5, and if you sum that, that'll give you 13. And then here, since you don't have any symbol in between of these 2 letters, that indicates multiplication. So I'm going to go ahead and substitute 8 for a, and then 2 for b, and that'll give us 16. And then moving on to number 7, we have to also use the same values. 8 for a and b for 2. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in 8, and always use parentheses. So that's squared. Don't forget the little 2 on the top. Minus 6. So 8 squared is 64. Minus 6, and then that would give you 1 solid number. And then number 8, number 8, we have to copy and complete the table, which I already did. I copied the table, and you're given this little expression on the side. So basically you're given 3 different values for x, 1, 2, and 3. So for the first expression, I'm going to go ahead and plug in the first value that I'm given, which is 1 plus 6, and that equals to what? 7. For the second, I'm going to plug in 2 for x, because I'm told that in this row, x is going to be 2, so it's going to be 2 plus 6, which is 8. And then lastly, we're going to have 3 plugged in for x, and then plus 6, and that should give us 9. And we have a little nice pattern of 7, 8, 9 because we're increasing by 1. And that concludes our first video.